It all started, as most world-ending cataclysms do, in the dairy aisle of a 24-hour supermarket. The air, thick with the hum of refrigeration and the faint, sweet smell of impending expiration, felt particularly oppressive that Tuesday. Or maybe it was a Wednesday. The days had started to blur together, like a watercolor painting left out in the rain, which is a pretentious way of saying I was bored. I was contemplating the existential void reflected in a carton of 2% milk when I saw him. He was not a man so much as a collection of beige fabrics, a human equivalent of a cubicle wall. He was meticulously arranging yogurt cups, his movements precise, almost robotic, and on his uniform, a small, unassuming name tag that read, Brian, Assistant Manager of the Universe. I chuckled. A bit of corporate flair, I thought. A little joke to get through the crushing monotony of stocking dairy products at 3 in the morning. But something about his dead-eyed stare told me this was not a joke. This was his truth. So I approached him, a smirk playing on my lips, ready to engage in what I assumed would be a brief, bizarre, and ultimately forgettable interaction. I leaned in, conspiratorially, and with all the snark I could muster, I asked the question. The one question. So, Brian, I said, my voice dripping with manufactured innocence, if you are the assistant manager, who is the manager? Brian stopped arranging the yogurts. The tiny cup of strawberry banana bliss slipped from his grasp, hitting the linoleum with a sad, wet, étournet. Tomea's eyes, which I had previously mistaken for dull, now seemed to contain the swirling chaos of a billion dying galaxies. A look of profound, soul-shattering panic washed over his beige face. No one has ever asked that before, he whispered, his voice trembling like a leaf in a hurricane. And then, reality, that stubborn, reliable old friend, decided to take a long, unscheduled lunch break. The lights in the supermarket flickered, not like a power surge, but like a dying star. The hum of the refrigerators deepened into a guttural, cosmic groan. The milk cartons began to sweat. Not condensation, but thick, viscous dread. Outside, the sky turned a shade of purple I can only describe as upset. A car alarm went off, but instead of the usual frantic bleating, it screamed in perfect, terrified soprano. Brian was frantically patting his pockets, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The manual, he stammered. I need the manual. It is not supposed to happen. There are protocols. From the produce section, a head of lettuce rolled down the aisle, leaving a trail of shimmering, iridescent slime. It stopped at my feet and, I swear to you, it winked. The fabric of the universe, you'd turn it out, was less like a sturdy tapestry and more like a cheap sweater. And I had just pulled a very important thread. Brian, meanwhile, had collapsed into a puddle of what I hoped was just existential despair and not, actual puddle. The name tag, Assistant Manager of the Universe, floated on the surface, a tiny, mocking tombstone. The automatic door slid open and a flock of pigeons flew in. Not the usual city-dwelling, garbage-eating kind, but majestic, shimmering pigeons with feathers made of pure, solidified sarcasm. They perched on the checkout counters and began cooing the complete works of Friedrich Nietzsche. It was then I realized the sheer, unadulterated stupidity of my actions. I, a man whose greatest achievement that week was successfully parallel parking, had broken everything. The world was now a surrealist painting, and I was the idiot who had forgotten to prime the canvas. A disembodied voice, sounding suspiciously like a board game show host, echoed through the aisles. Congratulations, contestant number 7 billion. You have successfully initiated the unscheduled cosmic reboot. Please hold for your complimentary existential crisis. I just stood there, amidst the Nietzsche-cooing pigeons and the melting dread milk, and I started to laugh. A hysterical, unhinged, I have seen the void, and it is mildly amusing kind of laugh. Because what else could I do? Reality was a joke, and I had just delivered the punchline. The punchline, it turned out, was that there was no manager. There never was. Just a series of increasingly stressed assistant managers passing the buck down an infinite, cosmic corporate ladder. And Brian, poor, beige Brian, was just the last guy in the chain. My question had created a paradox, a logical black hole that was now sucking the very concept of order into its gaping maw. The laws of physics, apparently, were more like strongly worded suggestions. Gravity decided it was tired of being so clingy and took the afternoon off. I had to grab onto a shelf of canned beans to stop myself from floating into the swirling vortex of existential dread that was now the ceiling. The pigeons were now debating the finer points of nihilism, their arguments surprisingly well-reasoned. A shopping cart, filled with what looked like sentient, weeping watermelons. Royette Pasma, pushed by a mannequin who had liberated itself from the department store next door. It tipped its hat to me. I think. It was hard to tell with the mannequin. So there I was, the man who broke reality with a stupid question. I had a choice. I could either curl up into a ball and wait for the universe to be deleted, or I could lean into the absurdity. I chose the latter. I grabbed a weeping watermelon, patted it sympathetically, and took a bite. It tasted like regret and cantaloupe. Not bad. I am not a hero. I am not a villain. I am just a guy who was bored in a supermarket. But now, I am the guy who gets to see what happens when you poke the universe with a stick, and it pokes back with a vengeance. And a whole lot of weird. The world did not end in fire or ice. It ended in a cascade of pure, unadulterated nonsense. And honestly, it is a lot more interesting this way. So if you find yourself in a world where the pigeons are philosophers and the watermelons are emotionally unstable, you know who to thank or blame. I am good with either. Just do me a favor. Do not ask who is in charge. It is a whole thing. If you enjoyed this little trip down the rabbit hole of cosmic absurdity, do all the things the algorithm overlords demand. Share it, like it, subscribe to it, or do not. In this new reality, free will is probably just a suggestion anyway.